I'm going to ask the Assistant Attorney General, Amy Solomon, to come up on stage as she will be greeting our keynote speaker.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. You are not going to want to miss this next session. Before we jump into it, I want to make two acknowledgements. The first is to thank the Fund for a Safer Future. These are the groups of philanthropies that, yep, they're the ones who were acknowledged earlier. There are so many private funders who are here in this space with us. They are partners, they are thought partners. They are putting on sessions, including the lunch session that you're going to hear from shortly. They are allowing us to break bread together. As you know, we could not do that with our federal funding. So I just really want to acknowledge, it's amazing, it's amazing, it's amazing. But I really also want to lift to the thought partnership and the leadership that they provide by being at the table and in the space with us. It's rare to have a public-private partnership with such a collective mission and vision here, and we do. So thank you so much to all of our funding partners. Yep. And I also want to acknowledge our Office of Communications at the Office of Justice Programs, who are here and all around. You'll see them all around, and their goal right now is really trying to lift your stories for the public to understand. And this is a mission, that's part of this conference and embedded in this conference, but it's embedded that the work we're doing over the longer haul. So thank you all so much. Okay, now I want to note that this week not only marks the start of our Community Violence Intervention Conference, but also the beginning of Second Chance Month. And this is another major priority for OJP. And I know that reentry ties into so much of the work that you all are doing too. And at OJP, over the years, we've now funded more than 1,000 different reentry programs under the Second Chance Act. And we're seeing some wonderful outcomes, including from many of the organizations that are here in the room today. But in addition to the grants, BJA has created a Second Chance Fellows program that recruits talented individuals who not only have reentry expertise, but also lived experience to bring to the table. And the Second Chance Fellows work alongside OJP staff to really advise reentry policies, programs, technical assistance, and the like. We currently have 3 Second Chance Fellows at OJP, at BJA, including the dynamic Angel Sanchez, who's going to speak next. And I will let Angel tell his own story, but I just want to say a couple things about Angel's character. So Angel is a brilliant colleague. He is a force of nature. He's a terrific collaborator. He is a thought partner in all of this work. He's an optimistic spirit, and he is a wonderful mentor for those who come behind him. And the passion that Angel brings to this fellowship really focuses on education and improving educational opportunities for people who have justice system involvement. And in particular, he's been working with the Department of Education and our teams to expand access to Pell Grants, which, as you know, are available to incarcerated students for the first time in 3 decades. So Angel is, yes, that is worth. So Angel is an inspiration. He embodies so much of the success that we know is possible through people who have been in contact with the justice system. And I am so pleased that he came back here to join us to share his story with all of you today. So please welcome to the stage my friend and colleague, Angel Sanchez.
How's everyone doing? Just because y'all eating, we ain't gonna give you the excuse to be just chilling. How you doing? All right. Well, this is to me a pretty special honor, particularly the date of today is April 3rd, and I'll mention why that's special. But as you heard, my name is Angel Sanchez. This is a pretty big water bottle. Just a second. Amy, thank you for those amazing remarks. When I was locked up, there was a phrase that some of my older mentors taught me is like, let people talk about your victories, you talk about your defeats. So since you've already talked about my victories, I could be vulnerable enough and start talking about my struggles here. So I'm a Second Chance Fellow inside the Bureau of Justice Assistance, BJA, which is one of OJP's components. And I want to share a little bit about the DOJ or the BJA fellowship in a moment, but I also want to acknowledge that it is a plug and it isn't a plug. And the reason it is a plug is because I'm going to encourage you to apply, but the reason it isn't a plug is because I'm gonna be vulnerable and honest with you and tell you the challenges that come with it, but I'm also going to tell you why it's worth it, and not just for this particular fellowship, but in the work that you're doing. And that's what my talk is going to be about. I want to thank Eddie for his leadership and his commitment to operationalizing this vision of community-based violence intervention and prevention initiative, right? So, it's a lot of letters there, what is it, CVIPI. Can we just, I don't know, how many of you were here last year? Yeah, there's some of you, well, there was someone that said community justice and healing. There was a poet that used this term. Many of us might not remember her name, but we definitely remember her words. And so that got me thinking, the most important part of this whole CVIPI is the community-based part. There's been a lot of violence intervention initiatives, but they haven't been focused with the partnership of community-based organizations, with the commitment and the centralization of the community's leadership. And so for that reason, I'm super excited that this has been taking place. So thank you, Eddie, thank you, Amy, and all the leadership at the DOJ, at the Office of Justice Program, for making this a priority. Now, I wanna first and foremost thank all of you, all the grantees, because you're the reason we're here. And the reason I'm saying that is, by the time a big national institution or a big government agency begins to put something as a priority, that means there has been many people for decades that have been putting in the work and we're not being compensated without the resources or recognition. And so because of that, what can have appeared as a thankless job that you all have done and others that came before you, finally we could have something that legitimizes your work, such as this conference, and it isn't the first anymore, now it's the second, and we hope it's not the last, right? All right, so the goal of my talk is gonna be to talk about particularly, how do I put this? Let me give you a story. When I was coming back from, well, I was coming here, in the airport, I saw a little girl and her sister. They both were playing with little teddy bears, and the mom finally was persuaded, or at least coerced, into buying them for those little girls, the teddy bears. But when the mother takes the little teddy bear from the youngest, she begins crying as the mother's trying to take the teddy bear so that she could give it to the person in the counter so that they could scan it. The child feels that this is an injustice that's happening to that child. And what was remarkable was not the fact that she was crying and this interaction is happening, but that the older sister also gave the mother the teddy bear so that the mother could buy it. And I saw the change in the younger child going from crying to a sense of calm. And the reason was she saw someone she trusted. She saw someone she could connect with, someone she could relate to, taking a risk that she was afraid to take. And that gave her some calm. If we could put it into some words, the baby would probably tell the mom, I don't trust you, but I trust her, right? And you all have earned the trust of your communities. You all are credible messengers. So the theme or the goal of this talk is, someone has to go first, but others have to know about it, right? Someone has to go first, but others have to know about it, and we need to figure out and learn how to tell it, right? We're gonna hear a lot about storytelling and narratives, and sometimes that's dismissed as either, trying to fabricate and using rhetoric. But the truth is that storytelling is how humans have communicated our entire lives. It's how we remember things. I imagine you're not going to forget the story I just told you of those two little girls, and they are real stories. They're not just some fictional thing I came up with. But most importantly, storytelling is essentially figuring out a way to make legible, understandable, an experience from one individual or one community to other individuals and other communities, either in time, or I mean, should I say in space, and also in time, communities that will come after us, and those that came before us who we look and read their stories and are inspired by it. So the most important thing here is not just story for story's sake, but stories that we figure out intentionally how to make them legible and that they have a purpose. Now, I grew up in a troubled home, in and out of jail as a teenager, eventually tried as an adult for gang-related shootings, served over 12 years in prison, had a uneducated single father who was a blue-collar worker and a mom who battled drug addictions. And you know, in prison, the mentorship of individuals who had been exposed to Pell Grants motivated me. And those individuals inspired me to then believe not only that I could earn the respect of my peers, but that I also could earn the respect of myself for myself. So when guards would talk about and call us ignorant and, in their own frustration, they would demean us, there was something about knowing that I was educated, that I had some dignity within me that helped me be resilient in the face of that experience. Once I got out of prison, I decided I'm going to start this prison to law school journey. And that was a dream of mine. And I had an experience where I got a work-study job because they didn't have a question on the application, have you ever been convicted? I then got selected with this prestigious scholarship. I was taken in and participated in this organization, and I'm a proud member of it, FRRC, which is also led by system-impacted folks. And ultimately got this fellowship. Today, I'm a lawyer. I'll take advantage of that pause and that little bit of credibility that I've earned with y'all. How much time I have left? Because I 7 minutes. All right. So because I do want to honor the next speaker's time. So I'm a lawyer. I graduated from law school at the University of Miami. So not only was I part of some of the worst communities and the most disinvested communities in Miami, but then I got the privilege of going to the private university in Miami. And as we're thinking about private universities, I'm trying to jot this down because we are here in Chicago. And, the last panel reminded me that W.E. Du Bois was inspiring a bunch of Black scholars during the Jim Crow South era. And a lot of them were doing a lot of research. And a lot of times, the University of Chicago has been credited as being one of the founder of the American sociology in the canons. But thankfully, somebody told me and told us and recorded W.E. Du Bois' story and all those he mentored, many who eventually went to the University of Chicago, but many who were doing it without that training. Right? And here's again the value and the importance of having stories to be able to inspire us and tell us that we also come from a tradition of individuals that might be overlooked, but in due time, your work is going to pay off. Go ahead. Yeah, we could clap for that. So today's a special day. Today's April 3rd. Ironically or coincidentally, April 3rd last year, literally today's anniversary, I had the privilege of organizing an event inside the Florida Department of Corrections where I earned my GED. I went to prison at the time with a 9th grade education and a 30-year sentence. And now they have college programs inside the facilities. They're starting, they need to be expanded, but there's people getting things that I only could dream of when I was locked up. And it was an honor to go back, but it wasn't just an honor to go back. It was an honor to bring dignitaries and have them sit alongside the gentlemen that were inside that facility so that they could be seen as equals, as not people who have to be kept apart because they are dangerous. But also, I filled that room without the inside students knowing, with a bunch of formerly incarcerated leaders that were out here that looked just like and are among the leaders that were in that audience, but the dignitaries as well. And the reason I did that is because it's so hard to be what you can't see. right? And so we need to have those examples, but those examples need to be captured and shared. And so when we had that experience, I asked all those who are formerly incarcerated to stand up and to ensure that the people inside saw their stories and saw themselves in the people that were in the audience. And the reason was, when I was in prison, I learned about this case of a gentleman who ended up getting out and going to prison, going to prison, but then getting out, going to law school and becoming an attorney. However, that's a story I read. It inspired me, but it only provided a foundation to get me started. Once I got out of prison, I saw reality hit me in the face, and the likelihood of me becoming an attorney was very slim. The messages I got from many people who have been told stories that formerly incarcerated people cannot be lawyers, or it's impossible, very unlikely, was communicated to me either directly or indirectly. And so the story wasn't enough to like anchor me and continue my dream. The story I read wasn't enough. And so I had decided I'll get an associate's in paralegal studies and be a paralegal, do the real work, and allow an attorney to get the credit for it and let them sign off on the papers. But during my first or second year of community college, I read an op-ed of this issue that was happening in Florida about voting rights restoration. I'm like, oh, so there's people actually in the mainstream that care about this. Because I had been disenfranchised before I even had the right to vote, and I've been disenfranchised permanently. But what was really important was that at the end of that article, there was a description of the author. And that author at the time was a law student, but also was formerly incarcerated and was leading this effort and had now decided to go to law school. And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't be the only crazy one doing this. And so while I read of one story, that second story helped inspire me to rethink what was possible. And what I took from that was, you know what, let me keep trying. And in the process, I got selected for this Cook Scholarship and made the front page of the city paper. And that gentleman was seeking me out because he wanted to collect all of us to start changing the narratives. And once I got alongside of him, his name, some of you might have done work with us on voting rights, so his name is Desmond Meade. Any of you who know him know he's a fabulous leader down in the South. Yeah, we could give it up for him. And even more than him, his wife, Sheena Meade, who leads the Clean State Initiative. He never got barred. He never got barred, but he inspired me not to give up without saying a word by doing the work. And eventually I would get barred. I ended up graduating from law school, and I got rejected from Yale twice at the JD and at the transfer level. But eventually I got accepted to Yale Law School to pursue my advanced law degree, which is where I'm at right now. And I waited till I was inside that facility last year to make that announcement, because I wanted to share it with the same individuals that were getting a college degree inside prison where I got a GED, and who might somehow be internalizing the fact that their education is not a real one. And I wanted them to know one of y'all is out there representing y'all, right? I wanted to do that. And so, you know what? It became more selective. I got rejected in the JD program, which is like 200 people. I got accepted in the LLM program, which is 29 people. And and Yale gets even more selective at the PhD. They only have like one person per year that they bring in, which that's crazy in the law school, partly because they fully fund it. But anyway, so that was important to me, because it's important. I've learned that it's hard to be what you can't see. And there's a lot about my story that's making this talk very hard, because I have to decide what to leave out and what to bring in. And one of the things I have to remind myself is, be humble, Angel. You're not going to change the world. Your job is to serve the world. And I want to make sure you all internalize that too, right? And the other reason it's hard is because, it's not too often that we are in this level of community, and every one of you and the work you're doing is important. But what none of my leadership and others know, and my surprise for you today is just like I made that announcement last year and waited to April 3rd to make my acceptance of the admissions offer at Yale. I want to announce to you all that I have been accepted into that 1-of-1 program in PhD of Law. So you don't have to remember my name. You don't even have to remember a lot about me, but I'm sure you'll remember this moment to give you inspiration, to give you a breath of fresh air, to keep doing the work that you're doing, to be humble. And I hope, and sometimes I am insecure in sharing sometimes good news because we don't want to eat in front of people's faces who've been starving. But the difference is that I want us to make sure that we're taking and we're sharing stories, one, to make them legible, to have a purpose, but also to be a catalyst. Don't get caught up in the comparison. You know, my friend Desmond didn't get barred, but he times 100, MacArthur Genius Fellow, and our organization, a system impact-led organization, nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, right? If I got caught up in trying to compare and achieve that, I would burn out. I'll feel not good enough. Let's not get caught up in comparison. Let's use these stories as a catalyst. And whenever we share our story, let's be humble and mindful of that. Others may internalize a comparison mentality, and we want to encourage you. You don't have to get a PhD. You could just be that 1-of-1 in your family that hasn't been there forever, all right? Anyways, love you all. Thank you. I went over time, by the way, but